So we're um, visiting Navajo Nation and had a wonderful visit with the Human Rights Commission there and then with the Vice President, and it was great. It's good to be here this afternoon. I wanted to be here at your opening meeting, which was not that long ago. I was not available, so I asked Sarah if I could sneak in a couple of minutes tonight, which I'm doing for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that is to thank you for being members of this very important commission task force. You know about the regional plan, and you have a long journey ahead of you. I understand it will take you to end of spring, early summer. And it's an arduous task. It's a big lift, and you're the right people for it. I know some of you because you sat on our Citizen Bond Committee a year ago. That was a very successful undertaking, and we couldn't be more grateful for what you did then, and to see you back in the room now. You have my deepest admiration, because I know how much time you're given to this process here, and I know how much time you gave to the bond preparations a year ago. You're in very good hands, as you probably know already, with Sarah. By the way, there's an anomaly here. We have two Sarahs in the room who both spell their names S-A-R-A.
Smart way. Yeah, smart way. There's consensus on that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a good omen in all of that. You're in very good hands with Sarah, and I see Dan Folk in the back, and I know Michelle is online. Hi, Michelle. And others from the city, Jana. So I am not going to interfere anymore with the hard work you have ahead of you. I just wanted to thank you for your dedication to this great and very important process. I don't need to welcome you because you're already here and you've been here. But I want to give you my sincere, heartfelt thanks for your contributions. And with that, I will let you get on with your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
So we did some lengthier introductions last time. But I know that Melissa Shaw from the county, Dan Folk were not here with us, as well as John Van Landingham and Christy and Leisha. She joins a little later. She might be having some connectivity problems based on what she just emailed me. But I wonder if the four folks who are here, who were not here last time, could just introduce themselves, say who you are, what brought you to the committee, and one thing we would not know about you just by looking at you, or by kind of our first impression of you. Do you want to go first, Melissa?
Oh, sure. And just to clarify, I'm county staff, Melissa Shaw, with Coquitlam County Community Development, and working with Sarah, helping Sarah to support the city with updating this plan, because as you all know by now that this is a shared long-range planning document with Coquitlam County. So we're very invested in this process, and I've been with the county, you probably don't know, since 2016. So maybe that's the one thing you don't know about me. But another thing to share, and you'll learn about this as we move along, we're also working to update the county's comprehensive plan simultaneously. So I actually will be taking a short intermission in a few minutes to jump on another meeting, but I'll be back. So thank you.
Dan, do you want to go?
Sure.
And then John?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Folk. I'm the Community Development Director for the city. And I was just thinking, celebrated my 10-year anniversary with the city on December 2nd. And one of the first meetings I went to was a meeting about the last regional plan, our current one. It was FRP 2030. And we had a big work session going through a parking lot of unresolved issues. And so here I am 10 years later. I feel honored that I've been here 10 years. I've made it. I pulled out a mug or a cup that we had commemorating the completion of the last plan. So I'm going old school tonight. Let's see what else. Something you wouldn't know about me. That one's a little harder. I enjoy jazz. I'm a big jazz aficionado, and I collect vinyl. I don't know, you would probably guess that by looking at me. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate it.
John, like, go.
Hi, I'm John Van Landingham. I own the Old Town Shops downtown, formerly known as the J.C. Penney's building, depending on how long you've lived in Flagstaff. I've been here since the early nineties and involved in downtown planning and management and business organizations downtown ever since then. So I'm happy to participate and hopefully learn something at this larger, more regional planning level. So happy to participate and hopeful to learn. Something you probably would know from looking at me is I've enjoyed playing hockey my entire life. If I weren't here tonight, I'd be at the Jay Langley Activity Center, playing hockey with my buddies on the Just for Fun hockey club. So, but I'll be here with you this evening.
Well, thanks for giving up hockey for the night for us. And I think Christy is online. She wasn't here at the last meeting, and we'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Zeller, and I have lived in Flagstaff for almost 25 years. I'm an East Coast transplant. I'm currently for the last 16 years, the executive director of Haven Montessori Charter School and Preschool. We're located on Clay Avenue in the Plaza Vieja neighborhood, and I've been active with that group and several different areas. I was invited by one of the council members, I think Councilwoman House, but I'm not positive. And I'm just excited to be part of planning for the future of this community that I love so much. Something you won't know by looking at me. Well, it's the reason I'm not in person. I had my left hip replaced 3 weeks ago yesterday, which is why I wasn't at the meeting. I had my right hip replaced in 2020, so I'm bionic. And this is a result of lots and lots of running on our beautiful trails for many years that finally caught up with me. But I plan to be at the next meeting, but I do still get pretty tired. So that's why I'm at home. Thanks for understanding and looking forward to being part of the group.
Jana, I see that Gina's with the city staff. Would you like to go? And then did Alicia just join us as well?
Yes, oh, thank you. I'm definitely city staff. My name is Jana Weldon, and I run the Beautification Arts and Sciences program. I have worked for the city for nearly 4 years. I think what a lot of people, since I've been in public art, we have an unusual name in Flagstaff, Beautification Arts and Sciences, but I've been involved in public art for 20 years. But what most people don't know about me is that I had a career as a prosecutor and a city judge for 15 years prior to that. But I'm full in the arts now. And the other thing people might not know is I'm a huge cinema fan, and that is movies in the theater cinema fan.
Great. Alicia, you joined us. We're introducing ourselves, and you're supposed to say who you are, what you bring, what brought you, or what you're bringing to the committee, and then something we wouldn't know about you just by looking at you. Or from our question.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry I'm late. My name is Alicia Chi. I am from Cameron, Arizona. I missed the last meeting and I do apologize. We had a family emergency. Again, my name is Alicia. I am working for Supervisor Lena Fowler at her District 5 office in Tuba City as the admin specialist. So I'm looking forward to joining in this meeting here. My clans are Nashdaja Tapahet, Sanjikana Bashashin, Nakirine Dashache, Glizafana Dashanella. I apologize again for my tardy today. I do have, I'm participating in training for vital records. And so we're down here in Phoenix and had some trouble getting onto this hotel Wi-Fi. So I apologize. I guess, what was it? Something you wouldn't know by looking at me. Let's see. Trying to think of something. Big fan of the movies as well, especially Spider-Man. So always hitting the theaters to see that in 3D when it does come out. Also a big fan of 3D and IMAX theater. So I guess that would be, that's who I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. So I think that's everybody. Did I miss anyone who hasn't done introductions? Okay. So the next item of business for the committee is to take away facilitation of the meetings from me by selecting a chair and a vice chair. So two of the members sent statements of intent ahead of time, but that wasn't a requirement to be considered for chair and vice chair. So who would like to start?
I would like to say that I made a push forward of interest to be the chair, but it wasn't because I wanted to be the chair or the vice chair or any of that stuff. It was because I have leadership skills in that department, and if we needed somebody to do that in the group, I'd definitely be the guy to stand up and do that. But my first choice was David Hayward as a recommendation to be the chair. And then my second choice was Al White, just because I know he's a cool dude and says a lot of stuff. And then after that, it was kind of like blanket because I like all of you and I wish you all the best. But I have a little bit of chair experience. I think about four to 5 years of Beautification and Public Art Commission, and I'm doing some chair work at the Sunnyside redevelopment subcommittee now. I think that, I think I stated that I don't have any experience professionally in city planning, but I've been to a lot of city council meetings and I've, used my voice to help change things there. The best part of my meeting facilitation skills are that if you're not talking, sometimes I'll try to get conversational with you in order to get things out of you. I want everyone's opinion to stand regardless of what side it's on or what background the person has, because I know how it feels to have your voice heard, because I've had my voice heard over time. So that being said, I just want to reiterate that I wasn't wanting to be the chair, but I definitely don't mind doing the work, but I'd rather see David be the chair. That's all.
I was like, I'll put my name in for this, and then I read everything, in the packet that we got today for everything that the chair would be responsible for doing in addition to coming to the meetings. So, I think for me that it's a similar feeling that want is probably a little strong of a word, but my main thought, to be honest, for putting it forward was that my goal for joining this group was always about getting the best quality document that we can, and something that's most useful for folks who use it. And having been someone who uses it, and knowing that staff relies on it a lot, and I think as Al kind of hinted at the last meeting, it's something that is supposed to give council direction on what the community wants in terms of long-term strategic thinking. So that would be my goal, more so than necessarily saying, I want this goal, I want this policy, the growth should be here, activity center should be here, et cetera, et cetera. So that was my consideration. And also I talked to Al and he told me he didn't want to do it. So otherwise I would have nominated him too. You sure you don't want us to nominate you now?
I'm not a candidate for United States president. And if elected, I will not serve. I'd be happy to vice chair it, and in the absence of Dave or Anthony, run the show, but I'm very happy to be a participant.
Are there other folks who are thinking about it, who want to kind of lean in here and be considered? I see some, I'd like to hide under the table, that's fine. And then folks online, Alicia, Tom, and Christy. Lots of, I know shaking. No.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
Could
The chairs can make a motion, go ahead.
Could I make a motion to nominate David Hayward as chair of this committee, based on his experience and connection to the process up till now and his leadership in the past.
A second.
I don't have a chair yet, so you're still gonna have. to
Yeah,
do
it's still
it.
me. There's a motion to nominate David Hayward as chair of the committee. Please, who would say aye?
Sure.
Aye.
Alicia, I don't know, your camera's on.
Sorry, sorry.
Any nays? All right, David is unopposed, and so
This
Chair Hayward, would you like to?
was the first point of order that there should be abstentions as well. and
Yeah, there
I'll
should be.
abstain.
Was that one abstaining?
So yeah, and then I suppose as my first action as chair, I would make a motion to nominate Mr. Garcia as the vice chair.
I would like to second that motion.
So go ahead.
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
All right, both have passed unanimously.
All right,
Great.
wish me luck.
So next on the agenda,
Gosh,
Ready?
jump right in.
I'll
So,
assist today.
right, thank you. But the next item on the agenda, number 7, is the subgroup for the regional plan cover art.
And Jana is joining us to help the staff person for that conversation.
Yeah, so BPAC, the Beautification Public Art Commission at the last regional plan supported funding for an artist to create cover art for the regional plan, and they have done so again. We have discussed an approach which would actually be a limited invitational to a number of artists, and the funding is up to $5,000. And it can be used towards creating both the digital, file that will be needed for printing, as well as possibly some original artwork. We have from the Beautification and Public Art Commission had some suggestions of artists, including Sonia, London Hall, who created those art boxes that the regional plan used in engagement. And also we have some artwork that was the outcome of that engagement created by community members that may play a role. But we need a committee to review proposals from the limited invitationals that we will put out. We're still, like I said, kind of shaping it a little bit, the scope of it. But we need, and I can't remember, Sarah, how many members from your group to volunteer to review the proposals when they come in?
We said up to 4.
Up to 4, right? And we will also have some BPAC members. And of course, Mr. Garcia, your vice chair, can serve both roles. I'll just hint, because he is also on the Beautification and Public Art Commission. So up to 4 volunteers. Who would like to help decide what goes on the cover?
Can I ask a question? How much time are we talking of a commitment?
Okay, so the commitment would probably be 2 meetings at most, and they would be up to an hour long.
I'll do it then.
Michelle, you want to try? And then Tina, do you have a question? Or do you just want to try? Be on the committee?
No, I have a lot of art.
Cool.
background.
Right on. And then Taylene, you want to do it? Oh, and then myself, I guess.
That's Michelle, right?
Yeah.
Nobody online put a hand up. I'll just check that. Christy, Alicia, and Tom, you're not interested.
No,
Andrew,
I'm sorry, this is Alicia. No, thank you.
No, thanks.
So who do we, I didn't quite hear, who do we have?
Tina Berger, Taylin, Corlin, Michelle James, and Anthony Garcia.
Oh, wonderful. If you would, Sarah, please send me everyone's contact information except for Anthony's. I have that.
I will do that tomorrow.
All
Yeah, but-
right, we probably won't be meeting until after the first of the year, so don't worry about your Christmas plans, okay?
There's a question.
Dave,
Wait a second.
Sorry, this
I just want
horrible job.
make
Alien
a clarification. My name is actually Talene.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
uh,
Did I say it?
great. Anything else?
It's demanding.
Thank
We'll move on to the next agenda item then, number 8, which is discussion of the committee's procedures and roles, which is a continuation from the last meeting. And was, I think, detailed pretty extensively right in the packet that you sent out.
Yeah, I think that the part that I wanted to confirm with you all is up to the standards that you want we didn't really get a chance to discuss processes for reconsideration of an item. I kind of anticipate that we're gonna talk through things chapter by chapter, and then 3 meetings later, something's gonna come up and we're gonna go, maybe we need to go back and look at something we already talked about. And so on pages 6 and 7 of the rules and procedures, I put in a few things about asking for items to be reconsidered. And that was one area I wanted to hear your thoughts and feedback on. And then the item we did not get to last time was page 8, which is the conflict resolution section. So that's my wish list on things I don't think you've weighed in on yet.
Does anyone have any strong opinions on the reconsideration process?
So, have you established, the concept of a parking lot for reconsideration? The parking lot is an area that gets used in these discussions when consensus and or agreement can't necessarily reach. And it's a hot button item and it's something that people want to talk about at a later time. You throw it in the parking lot, and it's directly related to a particular item that you're dealing with at the time. So, at some point, the chair would call for that reconsideration. We go back to the parking lot and pull it down. Does that sound like a formula for success?
So it's certainly one we've used successfully before.
Can you tell me more about this parking lot? I haven't heard this.
So,
this before. I don't quite understand.
it's like a whiteboard that sits in the corner over there. And as you're discussing a particular item, if agreement can't be reached and or there's far more discussion needed on that topic, you put it in the parking lot. And then at a given time and or a prearranged time, you can go to the parking lot and pull those items out and resolve them if you can at that time. But it's a way to keep things moving and to give further consideration for something that maybe, you have to bring up more discussion on later on.
Could we put up some sideboards to say that those would have to be dealt with at the next meeting? So they're not like, 6 weeks later or?
I don't know. I mean, to me, the time for that subject would kind of be something that if it's necessary to move to the next item, then yeah, you would do it at the next meeting. But it's also something that you could put off based on the chair or the committee's pleasure to a date certain later on.
Okay.
Or maybe it has something to do with another topic that's coming down the road and you associate it with that. It's just a method for keeping the conversation going when you reach an impasse in the discussion at the time, at the immediate moment.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Al on that, having some recent experience with exactly this sort of thing, that the zoning park area plan committee went through this, and the concept of the parking lot was very valuable concept in terms of keeping things moving, exactly as Al has said. Because sometimes it's very easy to debate a particular point and nobody is willing to give in or give it up. The best thing to do is table it, put it in the parking lot, and then come back and revisit it after things have cooled off, you know.
And you don't want to forget it.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the other important thing about it.
So I think that sets up something, right, for if we have a process. In the moment, we can put something in the parking lot, which is basically saying we are going to reconsider this later. Sarah, I think I understand that we also need a process for if someone comes back 3 meetings later and says, I would like us to reconsider goal policy XYZ that we did 3 weeks ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we are kind of disentangling two needs here. One is, and I think you summed it up pretty well, because I could see both of those things happening. One, we hit a point where we're digging in a little bit and we want to take a break from a topic so we can clarify it later. Maybe we think it needs more research. Maybe we think we just need more time to think about it, whatever the reason. And then the parking lot's very useful. But I think there are also things we can think, yeah, we tied that off with a bow. And then we get to a later conversation and go, well, maybe that thing we felt pretty solid about a few weeks ago needs to be put back in something. We could use parking lot as the terminology for both, but we sort of want to be able to have a procedure so people aren't continually bringing things up just to reopen the conversation, but also, you know, as you were saying, Michelle, some sideboards, but also something that lets that happen very naturally. Because part of the challenge is this group has to look at things chapter by chapter to get started, but these are all highly integrative topics. And so ultimately we have to be able to check our work and make sure everything really works together very well.
Do you think it's something that requires like a formal vote to be able to bring something back up, or
That's
could be less than
what
that?
I'd ask, like this process could be as formal or informal as you want. And if you're building trust as a group and you feel everybody's playing fair, it can be worthwhile, but I think there's some hands up.
One comment on that, that having the committee as a whole vote on something when it's reconsidered or to reconsider it, it depends on the dynamic of the committee. And I say this because my most recent experience with that was one wherein there were a number of very contentious items. And it became necessary to say that when we reconsider this, that the committee, one, vote to reconsider, and two, after the discussion, if it has to be voted on, a motion made, secondly, and not voted upon, that is the end of it, because the problem we had was that it was been continued on and on and on. Rather than saying, you got to get to a point where you say, this is the end of it.
Diane, did you raise your hand, or were you
Well,
shaking chip crumbs off of?
Both.
Of it? Okay.
I multitask. There is the ability to have a motion to table, which is basically the same thing. I don't know if we want to make it just sound more informal by having a parking lot. I've certainly done that myself too, but anyway, there is the motion to table, which kind of fundamentally achieves the same outcome.
Yeah, and I think, well, I'll say something, but Paul, you had your hand.
Yeah, I guess maybe just one small request, David, you could talk just a bit louder.
Just a bit louder, okay.
Just a bit louder. And I think in terms of, we have the two things, the parking lot, I think the parking lot is a nice important structure, let's just use it. The other issue is, should we, a way to reconsider? And I propose again that our chair be in charge of it, you know, so the chair says, been there, done that. Then we move on. And other than that, I see no reason for a formal procedure. Of course, I guarantee that March, we're gonna say that thing we decided in December, we screwed up, we gotta talk about it, and that's fine. You know, so you might say, been there, done that, now, and so, oh, wait a minute, we failed to consider this and decided. So I trust you to remember what.
I don't know if I want that level of authority. I mean, I think though that, I mean, in all seriousness, I wouldn't want a situation in which, one person wants to reconsider something and then, it falls to me to say, specifically no to them. But I do, I also see John's point, right, that we don't, if one person wants to do something and the rest of the group really doesn't, then maybe we need a vote process.
I would support the voting process.
Yeah, I think so.
that's-
So we say for something to be reconsidered, we'll need a majority vote.
Yeah, the way I've written it up right now, and you can certainly offer some feedback on this, is after on any question, any member who voted with the majority, and this is how our boards of commission manuals is written, may move for reconsideration of any action at the same meeting or at a future meeting after the date the action was taken. In the event of a tie vote on a motion, any commission member may move forward for reconsideration at the next regular meeting. And any member who wishes to have a decision reconsidered must alert the staff liaison in writing at least 5 days prior to the meeting at which the motion to reconsider will be made. So unless the motion was made and seconded at the meeting. And so what that means is that if you think ahead of time, actually, given what I see in the packet, I'd really like to make sure we have a motion to reconsider something old at the next meeting. You can notify me and I would talk with the chair and vice chair if that should be added to the agenda for discussion. If it's like something old, right? But if it's something in the moment at the meeting, you can just call it out at the meeting. One of my questions is, does it have to be a member who voted in the majority or could it be any member? That's something to consider, because what if you missed a meeting and then it comes up later and you'd like it reconsidered? And maybe any topic can only be considered once unless there's some kind of new information introduced or something like that. That'd be another thing we might add. So that's kind of the scope based on where you guys are heading and other things to discuss.
I don't see a need to have that person have been in the majority.
I
Feels too
agree.
Formal.
Yeah, okay, drop that part, done. Anyone disagree with that? Or
Yeah.
really want that part?
I guess we should ask, did everyone live with the reconsideration process?
Yes.
Could you say that again? Because I'm distracted by trying to find what we're looking at.
Oh,
So I don't have,
what the reconsideration process was?
yeah, please.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to reconsider an item that was previously voted on or achieved consensus, I suppose is important too, through the I can live with it process. They can bring it up and it requires a majority vote to be reconsidered.
And that includes the 5 days that we have to let Sarah know beforehand.
The 5 days is only if you are bringing something up that's from like 3 meetings ago. Like, hey, I read the packet and remember last month when we were talking about natural resources, I think there's something in there we're gonna have to go back and look at. So could you put that on the agenda? Like it's the old stuff.
To help you get time to prepare.
Yeah, time to prepare to know it's coming out and yeah, then we're not hustling for things. I was gonna pull this up on the screen really quick and change what I'm sharing since you wanted to see the wording on the screen. That means there won't be closed captions for a minute. So I'll remind everyone to speak loudly. I'm also gonna make it bigger, I promise. Down there. Don't worry, you don't have to follow yet. Okay, here we go. Motion to reconsider your salary over. Not
Changes and I couldn't even find changes.
Still too.
Sarah, can you make it bigger, please?
Oh, how about this?
I was gonna say, I can't read that and I probably understand.
I'm just gonna make the font really big. How's that? Am I getting closer?
The black book. It's better now. It's easy to, very good, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Maybe we can change it. So the changes I've heard so far are that we want to take out the who voted in the majority.
Yep.
Right. And then it could be must, but it also could be should alert staff liaison in writing 5 days prior to the meeting. So do your best. Let me know so I can get materials out, especially if something wants to be reconsidered. I can resend out the chapter to everybody. Just help us all be prepared. And then I put in here too that staff can request just a reconsideration if we notice something and we go, whoops, look at this, things got out of sync and we'd like you to look at it one more time.
The other thing that was discussed was, if a person missed a meeting and brought something up later that we voted on.
I feel like because that person would have to get a majority of everyone else who maybe was at the meeting to say, yeah, we're gonna, rehash that it's less of a risk.
It's not a requirement.
Yeah.
That the person be at the meeting in this shop or table.
Right. The only other thing that I think was on the list I said at the middle of this conversation to reconsider was what Mr. Rebels brought up of how many times can something be reconsidered? And do we want to say just once unless there's a reason staff thinks it needs, or staff or the chair thinks it needs to be looked at twice, or do you want to just vote on it every time?
I would suggest leaving it up to the chair or vice chair. That is probably the fairest way to do it. I would think. Somebody has to be able to make a decision.
Yeah, sorry, hold on, let me.
We can't hear you.
Putting that back up I'm putting the captions back up. Did you repeat that, John?
This is where I have to tell you one of those things that you probably wouldn't know about. Probably one of the most severely ADD people that you will ever meet most of the time. It's under control. But it wasn't this time.
I think, John, what you said was it should be up to the chair.
Yeah.
Whether it comes back more than once. Again, I think as what Talene was saying, that if we're having a vote, it's gotta pass a pretty high hurdle. So we have a relatively small risk of one person just wanting to harp on one thing. Also, I think we're all pretty professional, so.
And I can assure you that can be a reality.
Okay,
But
might
as a-
evolve into.
As a fail-safe, I think since you figured that it's probably not going to happen, we can just throw that in there just to make sure that it doesn't, and if it does, then you have to make a decision.
Okay.
Okay with that.
So maybe add some language that if an item is brought up for reconsideration a second time, that the chair and vice chair can determine if the second reconsideration is warranted.
Sure.
Is that fair?
That's good.
That's really.
That's
I don't
good.
know.
Yeah.
Whatever you think getting.
I will write that. I said it. I'm gonna be slightly ADHD like Mr. Rubble here and say I said it, and I'm glad I recorded it because I might not be able to write it the exact same way next time.
I'll have to remind you, it's ADD only.
Only
The H part, not in my case.
All right, so then the other part is conflict resolution, which tabling and reconsidering is part of conflict resolution. But on the last page of the document that we sent out on our working draft, there was a section we didn't get to last time, about what if the committee proposes something and staff takes it back and we go through legal or we go through other departments and they go, whoa, 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 actually, that's not gonna work, and here's why. Because I'm not gonna bring, 70 to 75 people on our extended team to every meeting here, right? So I might go back and water services says that's technically questionable if we can accomplish that or not, and here's why, and they may want to offer you alternatives. And so what we put in here was that if the proposal from the committee is not legal or feasible, that staff would bring you back alternatives and not just say, go figure it out again, but we would come back with some alternatives and see if we can be successful in reaching some consensus around those.
Okay.
Are you able to put it up or tell me where it is on this little?
If you go to this left side, that conflict resolution will be one of your things that you can press on it if we're on the same thing.
Okay, great.
You'll see conflict resolution as soon as you press on it. It's I'm trying to find the page.
It's on page 8. Yeah.
Just above this. The 5.
Yeah. If I put it on the screen, then Al can't read the captions of the conversation we're having. So.
Well, I mean, that's okay. If it's more important to see the language as it's written, take the captioning away. I'm trying to follow the conversation. And I have to do it by reading.
While we're looking at that, is anybody who's joined us online, Christy, Andrea, Alicia, Tom, do you have anything you want to weigh in on?
Hi, it's Christy. No, I don't, but I was going to tell Al that you can still see the captions if you click on, oh, you're not on the screen though. Never mind.
Right. It's flesh and blood. I don't have a thing I don't have a clicker.
Sorry, I apologize. It's helping me to be able to read the captions and yeah, okay.
That's all right.
I might figure out how to actually turn on Zoom's captions by next meeting. We'll give that a shot.
But is everyone okay with the language that Sarah put forward? And this is specific to if staff come back with what they view as a potential conflict?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay.
And were there other sections to the conflict revolution to avoid revolution? The resolution piece?
No, the only other section we hadn't looked at was recommendations from the committee, which is my recommendation that editorial changes, wording, or factual errors are all something you guys can email me and we don't have to have long discussions about. And if you send me something and you're like, hey, this is a factual error, and I go, well, actually, I'm not sure it is, I can take it to the chair and the vice chair and say, do we need to agenda? Do we need to have this as part of the group conversation, or is it something we can discuss offline? And we can have some, that basically Mr. Garcia and Hayward will be my sounding board on whether it ends up here, ends up happening offline and getting reported to you. And we'll just kind of make those decisions together, but be transparent about them. Because otherwise, like sitting around the table and like wordsmithing a chapter together.
No way.
Was something the last committee spent a lot of time on, but we talked about being very firm about 14 meetings, and we can't do that if we're picking at the words, because you are going to be reviewing drafts. And I think that's really important to remember, that everything you will be reviewing is a draft until the end. So I won't have every period and comma correct when it gets sent to you. Yes.
I would say, I mean, I agree with you, but let's just really emphasize transparency, because there's already people out in the community that are wondering what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I would hate for us to say, oh, some decision happened and I didn't even know about it. So if something like that is decided between, about a factual error, for instance, like put it on the agenda as a note or somehow get that to the rest of us.
Yeah.
So
And
Yeah, that's a good
really,
idea.
one of the things I really like to do, and there's two ways to do it, is I will track all your comments. If comments come to me in other formats, I'll say, here's the comment and here's what we did with it. And I can even either do that through a track changes in Word kind of format, which drives some people crazy. Or I can kind of create a table where it's like, here's a comment, here's who it was from, here's how we addressed it.
like that table.
And, yeah,
Yeah,
I think the
that'd be a
tables
way
are a little easier to read, but it does require cross-referencing documents, and I don't know how accessible that is for everybody. So if you have a strong feeling on either of those methods, let me know.
And then when those things come up, you begin, is there a place on the agenda where you can bring that up to the public while we're at the meeting?
Sure, I could include it in the packet every time and say, here's Scribner's or writing error changes that were made between packet delivery and the version we're looking at.
And then it becomes part of the public record.
Yeah.
if you will,
Yeah,
right?
that'd be good.
Do you think that would suffice, Michelle?
Oh, yeah, just some way, something in writing, whatever.
Yeah, I do that with staff comments too, because we will be going through so many versions of so many different comments on each chapter. There's no way for me to just remember who said what about which sentence, when, and if we addressed it or how, or if there was a later comment that overrode that. I've got to have a tracking system for that, or I can't answer your questions. So I'll just make sure that every agenda where we are reviewing a chapter includes that as part of maybe an updated packet that you get the day before.
That sounds great.
And then Sarah, those are your two items, right, that you kind of wanted our input on?
Yes.
Can
So
I-
anything else?
Can I kind of repeat back to you what I understood to be the process for leading the meeting, selfishly? So we will be effectively starting out with a can you live with it sort of process. If we do not get to a consensus on, you know, that there is anyone left who cannot live with the proposal, then we can move into a voting mechanism using the standard rules of procedure. And then that we also have options to parking lot or table things, you know, however we decide. Does that sound right?
Yes.
And then was there another section of even more kind of drastic resolution of a disagreement that you had in there to do with taking stuff to the planning and zoning commission or something?
Yeah, we do. I did put the 5 options if the will live with decision does not work, is to basically put the item up for a yay or nay vote, table it for a future agenda, which I'm gonna change the language around to be a parking lot given this discussion. I think this was supposed to be a
It was.
signing
We can ask
I
all
thought
kinds
that
of stuff.
too.
I'm
I
sure
think
we'll
it
ask
was.
quite a few
Yeah.
things.
I looked at that and I went, oh.
Sometimes spell check just really isn't helping me. You should know I invert a ton of letters when spelling. You'll get very used to seeing it. Assigning a subgroup to work on it with the staff liaison. So you could decide, you know, the 3 of you over here really seem to know how to dive into this a little more. So why don't you work on it and bring it back at the next meeting as one of your options for resolving things that don't arrive at will live with. Referring to staff to seek input from a board, commissioner, council. So you could tell me, and I included a list of all 30 plus commissions and councils available to work with you. But you could say, could you take this to water and sustainability and come back to us with what they think about this? So before we make a decision. And so that's an option. And then the last one was to have staff take it to the conflict resolution process, which is basically staff coming up with a bunch of alternatives that we run through legal and other staff things and bring it back to you. I don't know if you want that many options. I just put a lot.
You got a lot of
there.
options in case we get stuck, I think.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Dan?
When we were talking about this at the last meeting, I thought, and maybe I didn't mention this, but it doesn't explicitly say that we should ask the objector to provide language that they can live with. And in my own facilitation world, I've been tortured by people who just object, but then can never offer the language that would work. And so everybody spitballs 100 different ways of doing something, and it's always no. So
I sometimes as a facilitator, I call that the rock game, where you say,
Yeah.
give me a rock. I want a smoother rock. No, I want one that's more purple. How about a shinier rock?
exactly,
And like, and
exactly.
you can spend a lot of time playing
Trying
the
to
rock
guess.
game.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good addition to page 6, is to say that the objector should be prepared to provide alternative language or ideas for the group to consider.
Yeah.
And transparency all day long.
Yeah.
I agree.
And if you like the terminology of the rock game, we call some things like rocks in the road, like things that are kind of obstacles to overcome. But
Whose phone is that?
I like to call out the rock game when I go, are we playing the rock game
Yeah.
right now? Do we need to like come back and do something different? Because it is a way that committees like this get bogged down pretty quickly.
Okay, is there anything else on procedures and roles that we need to cover, Sarah?
Would someone like to make a motion for the will live with decision and have some notes for certain?
I'll make a motion.
So,
Yeah.
I might send you a couple of tiny typos on the very start times.
Yeah, those don't have to be part of the motion.
All right, can everyone live with it?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Speak up now or forever hold your peace.
On my, Tom and Christy said yes. Alicia and Andrea, can you live with the changes we discussed?
This is Andrea, yes.
Sorry, this is Alicia. Yes, thank you.
Right, we'll move on to the next item, which is number 9, which is process for chapter reviews.
So I sent you a document that's called the Regional Plan Writing and Reviewing Process Outline and Charter. And so I think I told you that we have about 75 people on the extended team supporting the work we're doing here, plus 20 plus people in this room. So almost 100 people helping to pull a really robust policy document together. So before we go and dive into this document, I just want to remind you of what our guiding principles are, which is right people, right agenda, right timing, that our experts and public work together, that we recognize the need for outside facilitation, continue to bring to the forefront issues of equity and inclusion, and have clear expectations for endorsement. We just kind of met the last one by making sure we all know how we're moving forward. But one of the most challenging parts is actually writing and reviewing these chapters, not just externally, but internally. And you think that, well, people are just reviewing it. You send it out for review and it's great. People send you comments. No. Comments come in 100 different forms. There's a lot of ways to lose time, and we really want to be time efficient. So I wrote this document and have had county and city planning staff review it because it's actually very hard to run these big reviews, including all the public comment we might be receiving about it as well. So long ago, when we chartered this process first with our internal teams, you know, in addition to those guiding principles, we came up with some success factors for the new plan. That it's feasible and implementable, user-friendly and concise, reflects our community's values, incorporates our diverse cultural perspectives, incorporates critical thinking about vulnerabilities, uncertainties, and complexities, considers the vision of different area plans appropriately, clarifies activity centers and how they will be achieved, and addresses cost constraints and affordability concerns for the community. And this is kind of how we said, based on the conversation staff heard, we think this is what it takes to have a successful plan that we can send to the Board of Supervisors and the ballot measure in Flagstaff. So with those things in mind, I kind of wrote up who's who and who's going to get to review and how many things are you going to get to review and when can you expect to review. And I'm going to try and turn this plus the schedule that I sent you all into like a real production schedule. for the whole plan, so people can see from this date to this date, if I've got vacation planned, I better let Sarah know because something really critical and important to me is coming up. So I created this process. Don't run. But, you know, staff, when I'm going to take all the things staff has shared with me so far, all the documents we've already produced, all of what we've heard from the public for the last year or two. Oh, and there's a bigger version of it, I think, on that screen. I just have it split screen right now. And I need to give staff internally 2 or 3 weeks to see a draft because I just can't, me and Melissa cannot be the experts on everything. We have a lot of expertise and we spend a lot of time listening to our peers and to the public, but we just can't be 100% sure of all the technical pieces of it. And we do have experts in those areas. Your timing is very good in the room, in many of the staff. So we would want to have ahead of you even getting it of 2 to 3 weeks for a staff review. Then we would want to have some time to resolve our internal conflicts, which means basically we have to produce a first draft a month before it's in your inbox and packet. We would have a lot of that kind of resolved, hopefully, before we come to the committee. But if there are conflicts internally and we don't have internal agreement or between the county and city on what content should look like, we would want to be very transparent about that and say there's not internal consensus and basically bring you some briefing papers or information that you can see what it is that we are struggling with on a particular topic. And so that could be part of what influences our scheduling. Then you would have a chance to review a draft. We would take some time to incorporate your edits. I sort of had maybe the chairperson would make sure they're sending an outline of requested changes, or we might I might make one and have the chair and vice chair review it and just say, this is the changes I heard I need to make. Is that what you all heard? So I have somebody to verify that with. And then we would have that conflict resolution process of if staff doesn't agree with the comments or the feedback from the committee, that we would come back with alternatives and work through that. That means everything kind of takes time, but you're going to be getting it in pieces all along the way. And we'll be working on multiple chapters simultaneously, even if you're only looking at one at a time. So this is my like peek behind the curtain. What do long range planners do? This.
I could see it.
How many chapters do you anticipate?
We have a required list of elements that have to be in the plan. They can be combined in a chapter, like one chapter can have like environmental planning and water resources. But at the next meeting we have on January 30th, we're going to go over all of that in much more detail and say, here's all the requirements from the state statute. Here's also the stuff we think we're going to want to talk about that might not be required, but integrated and helpful. But everything in the snapshots, which is something you guys are all supposed to look at and have reviewed by January 30th, is either something that's required by the state or is something that we have used previously in our planning efforts. So the snapshots are like a good check right now, but we'll go over what the actual required versus nice to do checklist looks like January 30th.
I have a question, Sarah. Going back one step, you talked about the critical success factors for the new plan. And maybe I'm missing it because I can't access that on my phone, so I haven't read it, but I know that we talked a while ago about one of the concerns with the existing plan is there's conflicting priorities. And wouldn't that be a success factor that we should put in here, that we've kind of dealt with that to some extent? Or can we come up with something that's just like we have and still be successful?
Yeah, that might be a good thing to add.
Yeah.
What do you all think in terms of, I'll go back.
Can you bring an example of what you mean by the conflict in the last plan?
Oh, yeah. So the regional plan will have all these things that they want to do. And it could be, one would say, I'm just gonna make some up, economic development. And one would say no sprawl. And so how do you reconcile those? And the situation now is the council decides. They say,
I'm
we
just
think this is
asking
more
for people
important than
are
that.
Not part of this process. I am, but I think I wanted to have it brought out for people that probably aren't aware of that.
That
Thank
makes
you for
sense?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I know we've talked about it.
What you said, Tina.
Just wanting to clarify, what she's saying is the conflict in a regional plan. There's a lot of people that aren't familiar with that.
There are a
Can I
lot of
talk Just a
examples.
little louder too, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, some of you worked with the regional plan, right?
Yeah, no, it's.
You know, there's a conflict,
Yeah.
lots of conflicts. so-
Yeah, I mean, if you write 130 things down, it's
Right.
almost guaranteed that some of them aren't gonna agree.
Yeah, and if
with.
they're all priority,
Yeah, and then none of them are.
right?
Yeah.
So how would we address that in this regional plan in some way?
How would you all want to add that to this list?
Anyone have any suggestions?
Could we acknowledge up front? I'm sorry? We can acknowledge up front that there's going to be those things come up. Even
Yeah.
no matter how much time we've spent planning, it's still going to, there's gonna have to be that if we're looking at all these broad areas.
Maybe we want to minimize them or
Right, I think the word minimize conflicts within the plan.
Yep.
Or conflicting outcomes.
conflicting priorities
Or
or what the right word
conflicting
is.
Priorities, yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Perhaps at one of our late meetings, maybe not last meetings, we could, we're not gonna resolve them all.
No, you can't.
It's
That's what he, that's,
impossible. But maybe we would have a meeting where let's talk about some of the main conflicts that we think are most troubling
mhm.
and how
Yeah.
would we address that? We're not gonna make them go away, but at least talk about what we feel is more important. The more we on this, it's gonna-
Right.
Like report language in Congress. Where actually maybe what you do is you have something that says it was the intent of the committee. And just provide some clarification alongside those things that in fact may seem contradictory.
Paul, are you saying identify throughout the beginning X amount of meetings, identify where the conflicts occur? And then refine them at the later meeting?
I think it's entirely, I expect that I will fail to see some conflicts because I voted, yeah, let's do this, oh, let's do this. And they really are,
Mutually exclusive.
and then if I read it, and I won't notice it, I'm going wrong, but at the end, I'll read through it and I'll say, wow, my right hand said do this, my left hand said do that. Can we clarify this in some way?
So maybe we could say something, I heard minimizing conflicts or maybe, yeah, maybe minimizing conflicting priorities. Within the plan essentially.
Yeah.
It could also just be setting really clear priorities. like
Yeah, I mean, I
stating what
hear
the
that.
That's more
priorities are.
positive, actually.
Yeah, and I hear that what Michelle was saying is that there's two pieces to it, right? That you can have goals and policies that, clearly conflict and we just need to reword them so that they work. But there's also a kind of more overarching
Philosophical.
desire to make sure that we are really making strategic choices that set priorities for the community, not just saying, yes, we'd all love to get puppies and ice cream.
Yeah, and another way to put it is just testing it in the real world.
Mhm.
Like just have an example and see what would happen with this. If it was this issue was in front of council, are these things conflicting?
Mhm.
If so, maybe we need to clarify that or address it in some way.
Yeah, I think we'll need enough pieces of the plan in place to kind of run some tests. I think that is something they did last time, was they had some like case studies. And they said, okay, what if this got proposed? Like, what if someone came to a pre-application meeting with the city or the county and they proposed this? And planners love to think of the things that would gum that up pretty badly. Because we have a lot of moments where we like, oh yeah, I never thought of that use there. Okay. And that's true because sometimes what we are thinking of is not what actually gets proposed. And I do think it's important to remember that any property owner can propose any use, and that what this really sets up is a process by which the community gets to consider those proposals. It's not that I went to a Killip Elementary once for their like fall break. They did an urban planning workshop for fall break, and the kid said, "Why did you close all the KFCs?" And I was like, "I don't have anything to do with KFC and if it's open in Flagstaff or not." But I mean, I think the general public sometimes has that impression.
A lot.
I know.
So that goes with what Michelle was saying, that we've gotten some viewpoints from the community that says, we want the, it to go this way or that way, or transparency, or. So, yeah, I think that's really.
So we need a way to make sure that people know.
And I don't really care if KFC comes back.
This really did, he was really upset. So, okay, so I wrote down that we need to add to the critical success factors for the new plan, that we set clear priorities and minimize conflicting priorities to the extent possible. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and then I also
Positive.
realized when we get to the schedule, we may have to talk about at what point is giving you some test cases a good idea, and how do those get run. So then we also have like, who are different people? Right now we've decided that the chair and the co-chair are going to be part of the core team. So they'll get every chapter early and get a chance to look at it and offer some thoughts about maybe this will need to be discussed at committee, or maybe so-and-so should weigh in on this. But you also have the opportunity to decide if people within this committee want to be on the extended team for certain chapters or topics, so that they are also getting that early review. So it's not just, Mr. Garcia and Mr. Hayward, but others can also be part of those earlier drafts. It comes to mind that Dr. Byer might want to see the natural resources section early and be able to offer some advice, and saying the rest of the group can maybe think about what sections of the plan they'd like to be an early reviewer on. You probably don't want to review all of them. It's going to be a lot. Thanks, Anthony and David. But there may be some you want to be able to offer early input on, because you've got something particular you want to be looking forward to contributing. I'm on the producer side, obviously, so you can also see I wrote for myself in the document guidelines what I expect of myself and my team as the people in charge of document production. That's part of the document. And as reviewers, that reviews are done on time, extensions are made on a case-by-case basis. I'll try and make people aware that if there's a big reason for an extension, it could delay the committee review of a chapter, and that might be necessary sometimes. So our schedule will basically always be tentative, because things could get bumped around. And then I have a SharePoint site, so I'm going to, and if you need tech tutorials on this, I will have a place where everyone can make their comments in the same document simultaneously. And I'm glad to run a tutorial on how that works and help people with it. But that really helps me, because then I don't have staff that's taking time in translating 100 people's comments into a single document. That's extremely time consuming and will not help us work fast. If there's major changes or things that contradict between reviewers, we will bring those out through a conflict resolution process. And that if it's something where I need people, if I send out documents, the assumption is you're being asked to review the whole document, unless I say something very specific, like maybe there's just one part of a chapter that someone from a county department or city department needs to review, because it's within all those Venn bubbles that work within the regional plan. And so we'll try to make those known so people can be efficient with their time. And then also just an acknowledgement that some issues and concerns cannot be resolved by the regional plan. And I hope every reviewer can agree to that. It's not like a cure-all for everything that ails our communities, and it does something very specific for the communities.
So Sarah, could I ask something? I don't know if this is the right point to do it. To that exact point, you know, and I think this kind of, because Michelle brought some points up that, you know, reflect her level of, you know, you've read the plan a lot, you've used it, you've seen it be used, right? So you kind of know what it's for. I don't know that everyone in the room does. And if we could, you know, before we start developing a document based on what we think is best for our community. And making sure everyone understands what the regional plan is, when it's used.
There's one more item. So I don't know how long. Why don't you watch something on TV for a little while?
So, Tom, if you have any trouble unmuting, just tell me and I'll unmute you. That does happen sometimes. The piece of that, yeah, that is important. I can put that on the January 30th agenda. I encourage everybody to watch the Regional Plan 101 video. That's in the snapshots. That's like the baseline. But if everyone's watched that, I'll offer some more details on that at our next meeting. You know, our process here is to kind of talk about how are we going to work together and what are the things we all and set in terms of our expectations. And then we'll dive into the what in much more detail. So I'll put that on the January 30th like to-do list for the group.
Thank you.
And then the last thing I put in reviewer guidelines, and then we'll talk about these are, I always put this in, reviewing grammar is nice, but not necessary. I recognize some people can't review things with improper grammar. It drives them bonkers. And I appreciate their attention to detail. We are gonna hire a writer editor who will bring it all into unification as we get into the summer. But at the speed at which we have to produce chapters, perfect grammar is not something I can set as a team expectation. We just can't make progress if I bog the subject matter experts down with that expectation. So that's my plea as a project manager. Like, I love a good grammar edit, and we clearly already needed one in the last documents that we looked at. And I always need them because I type fast and I'm putting a lot of material together for you. But you know, just don't get your review bogged down in that. If you can resist.
Just a point for looking at that screen. There's 7 items in the chat. Are they relevant?
No, I've got the chat open.
Oh, are they relevant to this, or are they not really there?
They're not really there. They're old things, but it just doesn't, because I'm not on that computer, it doesn't take away the counter.
Okay,
So
we're not missing anybody's.
no, but this might be a good time to ask the folks online, Tom, Christy, Alicia, and Andrea, if they have things to add.
I don't have anything to add, like the discussion as it's going. Thanks, guys.
Same, thank you.
Hello, this is Alicia. I also do not have anything to add, but I'm just really appreciative to be sitting in on this discussion. This is all new for me, and I love the learning opportunity. So thank you everyone for giving all your input.
Tom, your children have anything to add? Or are they children or grandchildren?
Are you gonna unmute him?
Yeah, I'm hitting the ask to unmute.
Go ahead, Tom.
You're off mute, Tom.
Did you, I thought someone asked me a question. I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear it.
It's fine. We were saying, do your children or grandchildren have anything else they need to add to the conversation? No, you're good? Okay.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Tom, have anything you want to add?
They're good and I'm good. Thanks a lot.
I could tell on you for that. David had his toddler walk into a council meeting when he was presenting what we're doing. It's a really funny thing. So he says that with a lot of parenting compassion.
Yeah, he can relate.
Yeah,
There, I had a question.
yes.
So you breezed over letting other folks of the committee get advanced look at some of the packets. Is there like a methodology to it? Do they have to reach out within a certain amount of time? How do we figure out who wants this and how do they get that information to you so you can get it to them?
I think we should talk about it tonight.
Okay.
And then the folks who aren't here should maybe follow up by email with me. So I have like a list of names, like these are the sections that Julie wants to be an early reviewer on, and these are the ones that Diane really wants to dive into early rather than, you basically, if you sign up as an early reviewer, you get 2 bites of the apple. You get to see the first draft and then you get to see the second draft.
So would you like a show of hands as to who would like to be on that list and then have them email you or how?
Yeah, let's do it by chapter though, when we get
Okay.
to like the schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be the time where you can kind
Yeah.
of walk through that. Because I don't think unless there's somebody who really wants to review everything early besides the chair and vice chair.
Yes, apparently. That's the other than that's what we signed up for.
Really?
You did.
Guess I should have read that.
I promise you, yeah, I guess we could have read it in advance. So, yeah, but I do want to come back to that when we get to the actual schedule.
Okay.
Other things on review expectations, a lot of this information this is a compiled document that talks to both staff and the committee as reviewers. So like things like spot reviews are probably not going to come to committee members. They're going to go to people like Aaron Young in Water Services or Nate Reisner in Public Works at the county, like people who are internal, but that's not something we'll ask for the committee to do. You'll be either doing the preliminary and rough draft reviews, which are the ones that go out a month before the committee sees it, or a chapter review, which that's what will happen in the committee meetings. So just want to make sure that's clarified. And then the last couple pages of this document talk about the decision-making process for conflicting comments and values. Some of that we've talked about here, but it's kind of exists in both places because this is the document I'm going to send out to the 75 staff people. So this is the overlap area. So I might need to update this section a little based on our conversation tonight. And then the last thing is I just kind of because some people love a bulleted list and not a descriptive document. I try and be accessible for everyone when I create things like this. The last thing is kind of a process step list for people who think in bullets and not in text. And then the last thing in this document is what I'm going to retain in terms of track changes, because there are sometimes expectations that I can create a track changes document that could track everything from the very beginning of a chapter to the end, but it looks like gobbledygook by the end and no one can read it or understand it. And so I'm setting the expectation that from first committee review to final chapter, I will keep a track changes version of that for all of you to have to reference. Also, that public review draft that goes out until the first public hearing, we'll keep a track changes version of that. Other track changes versions are going to be disposable. They are not going to be something we archive or keep with the documents of how we created this plan in the long run. And so that's a transparency piece. So I wanted to run that one by you too, saying, are there other kind of pieces of the process I need? I'm a good record keeper. And many of the records you make in long range planning are what the state calls a permanent record, like it will live forever in archives in the city of Flagstaff and the State Museum of Arizona. And so I'm really careful about like what's in the draft file that we can kind of scoot away in the future. And it's, those get lost to time, but also we're trying to keep a really thorough record of what we've been doing. So thoughts on what I need to keep, essentially. Does that sound acceptable? The first committee review to final chapter and the public review draft to the first hearing are the only drafts I'm going to keep in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Okay. anything else on the writing and reviewing process and the documentation that you want to talk about or go over? Otherwise, we move on to schedule and how to include boards and commissions. That's the next piece. Oh, I put this in here, but. Okay. So I put together a schedule for you all, and I have actually a few corrections to it, and I should have put these in a different order. One, thank you, Susie, for noticing that I messed up the dates in April. The dates in April are actually Tuesday, April 10th, and Wednesday, April 23rd, and I think I must have been looking at the March calendar when I wrote the numbers in. So,
Wednesday is April 24th.
oh, right, you're right, sorry, April 24th is the Wednesday.
What was the first one? Did you say April?
I think I have April, I'm sorry, I actually have Wednesday, April, it should be Wednesday, April 10th and Tuesday, April 23rd. So I did some inverting here.
Oh, Wednesday.
Yeah, sorry.
You'll send out a corrected one.
I will send out a corrected one after this week.
Thank you. And I guess I would say, please just push them onto my calendar.
Yes, if we all agree to the schedule, I will create the fun calendar invitations for electronic calendar tables, and I will put together this Word document corrected and get it on your calendar.
And then the other thing, I don't know if it really matters, it's not an official holiday, but Wednesday, June 19th is Juneteenth.
Ah.
Which is, you know, I don't mind working on Juneteenth, but if that's a consideration for the city, we'll change it.
Yeah, we could move that to Tuesday, June 18th, if that's acceptable. Is that a good suggestion?
I'm washing my hair that day.
Okay.
Plan it out.
All my vacations planned during this period, they are not negotiable. I did build this around my own vacation.
That's her prerogative.
Yeah.
She's in the maelstrom.
So the other thing I tried to do on here in the second correction is I was trying to put in to help kind of seed the discussion of how do you want to interact with other commissions and committees and boards, because those boards are meeting regularly and talking about relevant things, and you have insights you want to find out or talk with them about. I didn't know how you all would feel about, would you like me to go solicit input from commissions during the rough draft review and bring you, hey, the Water Commission weighed in on this and here's what they think, or would you like to have a discussion and send questions to a board or commission that you would like more clarity or feedback from? So I was kind of put those in red as like a maybe you might want to think about if we did it after. I think what I put in here is kind of an idea that it would be after, but it can be either way. I can work a process either way. But one of the corrections is the April one, I should have written water and sustainability commissions, and I just didn't replace the cut and paste error there, so. I can pull up this document too.
Julie, you've been a transportation commission person for a long time. What do you think is a appropriate way to interact? And I mean, I think also expectations, right? For what will we actually get out of those folks?
And then the timing as well, because usually they request that material quite in advance to be able to review and then have discussion, and so timing may not always work in our favor. You're wanting to weigh in the front end of it rather than circling questions back. But as far as process, when the regional plan, when the draft is ready, that goes to each board and commission at that point as well. So it's this additional step up front that you're asking about.
Yeah, I do what's called I call it the tour day commissions. And we go to 26 or 27 boards and commissions, and we do a presentation, and we try and customize it to what their area of interest is a little bit and draw out discussion from them. We will definitely do that during the 60-day public comment period. But there may be things where you think, why are we talking about this? What does the water commission think about this? What does the transportation commission think about this? Like, that could be kind of a tiebreaker if you use it in the post committee discussion period, but there also could be reasons you want them to weigh in beforehand, and having that direction early helps me because sometimes they have very full agendas. And so I might ask for a slot on an agenda and they say, we're full that day, you gotta go next month, and that could create some scheduling issues. So I want your feedback on how to handle that and what to do about it, so. I know some folks here have done a lot of that and others not. Tom has his hand up online.
Just a question about the schedule. On April 5th, that says there's one word energy there. I'm wondering, will we be getting either a briefing from APS or some written documentation about what they see the energy grid looking like in 2045 that we can use for planning purposes?
I could seek that input ahead of time. I don't know if APS would send a representative, but they could probably give me information up front to be able to share. And I can ask, I can always ask. They have a community, they have a position in APS that's like their community outreach person. And that person's not a technical expert, but kind of a person who can talk to lay people about APS issues. And that's probably who they would send if we.
Right, I think that's going to have a fundamental impact on a lot of other decisions that we make, what kind of energy grid they expect to have at that time.
Great.
Sarah, I would kind of feature you going to those commissions with some kind of warning as to what topic is coming up and see if they have input in the beginning. If you wait for our questions, and I don't think that's, I mean, initially I was going to say do both, but it's easy for me to tell you what to do. I mean, not necessarily easy for you to do it. I just think that it would help us if we had some of their input prior to our discussions and what we're looking at in terms of decision making. Like a heads up as to what the Water Commission is, because they could be working on something that's very germane to that topic at the time, and that would be helpful to us.
Well, a third way that I'm thinking of on the fly here is we could, if there are key chapters that you want commission input on, we could go to those commissions or ask their liaisons if there's people on the commission that would want to be rough draft reviewers. And they could say, don't have the whole commission, but are there 2 people who would like to see the first draft of this chapter and look at it?
They can tell us what the rest of the commission is thinking.
Yeah, they might be able to circulate it a little.
Yeah. I'd keep it as focused as possible. It's a lot to take on. So I think if you go to the boards and commissions, the more specific and selected, that can be, I think that would be helpful for your time and for their time. So I'd lean more towards having it crafted as, here are some specific areas we would like some input on. That would be my recommendation.
That's good.
Yeah. And that was part of your recommendation too, wasn't it also? Yeah. So I'm hearing from the group that we're gonna take specific, once we've gone through a particular piece of the draft, and if we have specific questions that we want to send to boards or commissions, either because we can't resolve them or we want their expertise, then we will ask them those questions directly.
But actually, I like your suggestion of, in addition to doing that, going to the commission and saying, do we have 2 volunteers who would be willing to review this at an earlier stage? Because if you ask the whole commission, they'll never get anywhere. It's not. But if you get 2 people who are keen to say, yeah, I want to do that. And I think we could get them some early things that would help make a better draft that we circulate later. I've served on several commissions and I know some of you have nothing. So I think that could be a great way to engage and get the people who are keen to do it. Get it at an earlier stage. Say, I haven't thought about this, think about it. You know, it's not drafting, it's not editing, it's saying. Think about this.
It's there, if it makes it less cumbersome, to first get into the agenda. But also to not have to put a whole presentation together, you might want to just do this during public participation at those events. And if you make it more pointed, like Paul said, you might not need a whole presentation to do so.
Right, even just getting on the agenda, it's super, you know, you need 2 volunteers.
Right. I don't think I can do that at public comment because they can't discuss things you bring up at public comment. Kind of what I was thinking, and it might depend on the willingness of the commission liaison to do that, is that I could ask the liaison to solicit volunteers and send them like an email that solicits that and say, can you agendize and ask for 2 volunteers to review the following sections of the regional plan as a rough draft before it's, you know, and offer advice to the regional plan committee.
So if they're reviewing it in the rough draft, which is the draft that Anthony and I get and specific people, then we would get those comments to us as a group prior to our group review, which is of the second draft.
Yeah.
So it does get them in early in the process if they want to be, I think, per Paul's point. So that's self-selecting, right, for opinionated folks.
I think that would make them feel better later on too. They're not saying, well, it's on the last draft.
Yeah, what am I supposed to do?
You know, and say, well, 2 of you did give us input early on, so you don't feel like last minute, that 2 weeks.
And then when we come through that second, when we do our group review, if we have specific questions, we can send them back to the commission.
What do you all think of that process?
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way David just described it.
Okay.
Folks online?
But it's our job as regional plan members to do that. That's why we're here. Is we're here because we were appointed by members of council for the board, the supervisors, to do that initial review, and that's our job. So I want to be careful about passing off things to other commissions and committees and boards to do that.
Yeah, and you can limit it as much as you want. I am not gonna go out and solicit from all of these committees unless tonight you all tell me this committee should give us some volunteers to review this section. Like, so for instance, there is no one from the Water Commission, which is a pretty big one on the committee. And we just can't have like 50 people on the committee, right? So there's, I feel like I'm trying to find a way to help you guys balance that need for expert and public input with the makeup of this group. So I think that's a fair point to like pull together right now. Basically, you're gonna help me do this interim step tonight. And then I'm gonna send out the, I'm gonna basically make a list of who's a reviewer for each chapter. Here's the internal staff at the city and county and partner government agencies that we'll be looking at. Here are the committee members and here are other invited members of boards and commissions that will review this chapter. And those will all get compiled together.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Julia, it's not, we're not asking them to do our job for us. We're just giving them an opportunity to comment, right? Because it's just another, maybe
Fine.
1 or 2 comments.
I totally get
That's
on
all.
board that. I just
Yeah.
know how challenging that can become in the process, and we're on a schedule, certain things we need to get through, and so. Yeah.
And that is true. Like, what if somebody volunteers and then they don't review it? I think we just told them, we're gonna keep going. If you don't review in your 2 to 3 week timeframe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
get to comment. I mean, it's the same as everyone else who's on the list, right?
Right, right. I would treat all of those early rough draft comments equivalent to each other, I'm not gonna prioritize even the committee members' comments, because we're gonna weigh it all together. That's that's the experts in the public together principle at play there, is that we're not gonna try and guess how we should balance it. We're gonna bring it to you all, and we'll discuss that balance really openly. I know this feels really nitty gritty, but it's really helpful to me, because then I didn't pick this. I always tell people that, it's not gonna be Sarah and Melissa's plan. And we're gonna be your worker bees, but we're not actually going to put our fingerprints all over this. So that's one of the challenges of doing it, right? Then it has to be a really open process that everyone's really clear on the expectations about. So.
Are your concerns addressed, Julie? Yeah.
Other things we need to talk about before we dive into the who question of who wants to be early reviewers, or who would we invite as output, like as commission or board member reviewers in different sections. So I know this is not very big text. I'll try and be better about making the text big next time. The meeting schedule, I've tried to put things in an order at which I think I will be producing them. But as you learned, there's going to be some reviews. There might be some conflict resolution happen. So this schedule will be always subject to change. Maybe like, for instance, when we get to the February 21st meeting, something about open space will have gotten hung up. And I might bring you natural resources, environmental planning and recreation with some placeholders for open space until we can get something solved, and I'll explain why. And then that means it might need to bump a little further along. Likewise, there's some additional analysis being done on land use planning. The city is doing what's called the last cap process, which is the land area suitability study and a climate action plan, climate and affordability audit of code audit process or something like that. That's what the cap is. I can't remember. What's the cap?
Yeah, that's correct. Code audit.
It's the code analysis. It's the land availability, suitability, and code analysis project.
Thank you. So there's a project, and we're meeting with that team to make sure what they are learning gets incorporated into the land use part. So all these moving parts on the back end might mean some of the stuff shifts around, but I'll try and keep the schedule up to date so you know if things are moving back a little because something parallel to us is discussing. But I'd like to just hear in terms of, oops, somebody's trying to get on. In terms of the sections that we would be reviewing, starting with the February meeting, who would like to be like an early reviewer on those sections? And then also, are there any other commissions or boards you'd like to be early reviewers on those sections? So that's starting with natural resources, environmental planning, and open space and recreation.
Yes, of course, I'm going to volunteer for that, but maybe could you explain a little bit more what will be there? I will have participated earlier in reviewing, and now I'm going to be reviewing what I helped write.
Ask it one more time.
Oh, yeah. So just trying to understand, say, if I volunteer there for natural resource environmental planning February 21, what would I get and when, and what is the process?
I think you would get a draft chapter, the first rough draft sometime in early January to look at and review. Is kind of what it means. So imagine like 4 to 6 weeks.
So that will have been written by staff.
Yeah, it'll be first draft by us.
Right.
We've got a lot of existing material.
Right. Yeah, cool.
And we're gonna take that plus the public comments we heard.
Probably said that already, but I didn't.
No, that's
So
okay.
now.
Yeah, no, it's important. And, you know, one of the reasons I put some of these in the front is because there's really a lot of consensus, I think, and it's gonna be finer details that we're trying to work out in some of these early chapters, like the high importance of natural resources in our community is universal in all the public engagement, and but the how we do it is the part that people, I think, need the most discussion. And that discussion of the how would it be very important to understand and inform all the land use systems we're gonna figure on. So,
I gave up. I was like, I'm gonna go eat. I'm hungry.
right. I don't know. Yeah, I know these hybrid meetings, but you guys are really hanging in there. I appreciate it. So yeah, like natural resources and environmental planning, are there multiple folks, Rick?
Yeah.
Likewise,
Michelle.
and yeah, Rick, Michelle, Diane, I saw, Paul. Anyone else, anyone online who'd like to be an early reviewer in that chapter?
Could you repeat?
Planning.
Tom's trying to ask something.
Could you repeat the question again? I'm sorry, the audio quality is not that great, and I wasn't sure exactly what you were asking us.
Sorry, I'll try and ask louder and point my chin at the microphone. The chapter for natural resources and natural resources, it's getting late enough, my mouth is not making words come out correctly, sorry. Natural resources and environmental planning is one of the, is kind of the first chapter we're gonna look at. We're gonna use some existing material and information we have. Who would like to be an early reviewer, review the rough draft rather than only see it with the chapter that the committee gets that's already been through that internal review? Right now I have Paul Byer and Rick Miller and Michelle James and Diane Bosick are all gonna wanna look at that chapter early.
So Tom,
Okay,
right,
thank you.
right now, we're just going through and making sure our schedule and whoever wants to review what is it within that schedule, we're there to figure out those people who want to participate in the early review that are on this committee moving forward. Did you want to be part of the natural resources and environmental planning, Tom, or you want to
Sure.
wait another one?
Sure, I'll sign up for that too. Thank you.
And then Alicia, Andrea, and Chrissy, are any of you interested in that chapter?
You guys have plenty of chapters to look forward to, so don't
Yeah,
feel,
don't
don't feel peer pressured into the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. Melissa was just saying maybe I should just read them all. You can take it in and we'll go back up and do it. Okay. Okay. So the other chapters, and you don't have to respond, just listen to what they are open space and recreation, public services and facilities, cost of development, future land use is of course one, transportation, which includes road network, bicycle, pedestrian, and transit, the growth and land use chapter. So, oh, water resources and energy, I skipped over, water resources and energy, so that's another one.
What about on March 20th, it says preferred scenario review and endorsement?
Yeah, so there's kind of two pieces going on. I'll talk about that. There's the creation of a future growth illustration or future land use map. We can decide what to call it. Nomenclature is something that's up for discussion at this point. And that is the map that helps drive all the policies. And so the way we're going to be developing that map is we have the scenario choosing online open house and in-person ones going on now. And then we're going to take initial findings of that and bring that to you for some discussion of how to create a preferred alternative or preferred scenario from that. Our consultant is going to be working on that preferred scenario through March. And then they will bring you a draft of it. I'm not going to have that one ahead of time. You're going to see that at the meeting and be the first reviewers as well as staff on it. So that they understand that. So you understand, like, here's how all these things we're talking about might become a map, because that is a big part of what we're trying to accomplish. And then later on, that becomes like a more formal policy-driven map and not just a conceptual one.
For those of you who may not have participated in it, a lot of those are, why am I doing this sort of things? It was actually relatively informative. We'll make these choices and here's what you now. Good recommendation.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
You know, when I
Yeah.
first started, I thought, oh, wow.
I know, me too.
This wasn't bad.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fun.
Oh, good. I like when people think our public. I am like,
My heart is, my heart is.
that's what, did you enjoy participating in that public meeting? Day.
You don't just have to bribe them with snacks.
Right.
Mm.
So we jumped to natural resources and environmental planning. The next two are open space and recreation. I actually think my slide is wrong. I think I was meant to put those in the March portion.
Yep.
I had them down for March 5th on the paper, and then for some reason I just mistranslated it when I got it on a slide. But open space and recreation could be one chapter, incorporate Rick and Susie and Michelle.
I'd be on the open space part, not the recreation part.
Okay. All we only want to do. Other open space also for Sarah. Others, folks online.
Yeah, hi, Sarah, it's Christy. I would like to do open space, please.
Yeah, and to clarify, Sarah, mine's just open space.
Use just open space.
Try to limit.
Exactly.
Others? Is that the topic? Okay.
Are you talking about the water resources and energy now? I'm sorry, my audio is so bad, I can only get part of what you're saying.
That's the next one, Tom.
Okay, sorry.
That's called, so water resources and energy. Are there folks who'd like to speak?
Quick, Tom, quick.
Okay, if I don't speak up in time, I'll sign up for that one, okay, if I miss it.
Both or just water or energy?
Is water resources and energy one?
No, they're two chapters.
Okay, energy, sign me up for energy. Thank you. I apologize, everybody.
I'm sorry.
Sarah,
I'll raise two hands. I'll bring both. Both of them.
can I do water, please?
Water for, sorry, I'll go around. So, water for- All right, Diane.
Water, energy.
Vote early and often.
So you're breaking these down by each number in parentheses,
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I would take the whole April 10th and 22nd. All those categories, I'd be
okay.
asking for advance notice or,
You'd like to see those early?
and yeah, before
Okay.
before anybody else in the world.
Yeah.
Transport. We're sick of transport.
We will have like smacked our heads on tables about it for a few weeks before you see it. But,
And all of those topics gonna come up in those two sessions, right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay. So
that's the 2 April one, so, okay, so I got Al, sorry, I was working my way around, I got Rick, I got Al, I saw,
Michelle and Diane.
yeah, Michelle and Diane, I have for both water resources and energy. And Paul, other folks for water resources and energy? Water resources includes water as a utility, I should make sure is clear.
that's right.
Not just the natural resource side of it.
they are connected.
Yes. And if I miss you and you want to go back to any topics, just let me know. I know we're moving along and maybe the audio online might not be excellent, so. Public services and facilities and cost of development. Are those together? They're kind of separate sections. Okay. We haven't decided how to turn them into chapters. There's pieces all over the place right now. We still need an assembly.
Read or cost of development.
Okay, so
Read them again.
Public services and facilities and cost of development. So Tina wants to be down for cost of development. Oh, wait, public service and facility. Okay, now wants services and facilities. Al wanted both.
I want all of that.
Yeah.
I want it all.
You want it to be affordable, do everything we want.
Anybody online for public service and facilities and cost and development?
This is Andrea. I would like public services and facilities. Thank you.
I would just like an explanation of what is cost of
Yes.
development.
Me too.
Well, so it's a section that's required by the state where we have to talk about. It's kind of an element of affordability is what I would say, right? We can't have affordability unless we're discussing how we're gonna manage the costs of development. And the status quo, looks a certain way in Flagstaff. We expect that, our current cost of development goal is that developers pay their fair roughly proportional share of the cost of development. And we have some incentives language about, we should have incentives about some things. Other cities model them very differently and say, like, we have big increment financing districts. We use our tax structure to make it more affordable to develop here. And there might be tools along those lines from the affordable housing plan and the last CAP recommendations that get looked at in that cost of development section. That might be one too, where we make a first draft of it and we learn some things and we have to go back and do some reconsideration of it. But I wanted to get at least the concepts of it in front of you before you see a future growth illustration. If that makes sense. Yes.
I'd like to be on that.
Okay.
Early.
Anyone else for cost of development now that I've explained it a little? Diane does. It's nerdy economics. So. Right. The next one is probably transportation, which includes road, bike, ped, transit. And that's probably all going to come as one chapter, but you can review portions of it if you want. It's one of our two biggest chapters in the plan, without a doubt, are going to be transportation and growth and land use. They're the meat center of a lot of this. So Julie wants transportation. You've been on the Transportation Commission a long time, so that makes a lot of sense. Others, Michelle does.
Those are May meetings, is that right?
What was that?
Are we in May now?
We're in May.
June 4th.
June 4th.
June,
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
June
A
4th.
lot of May is the interim stuff behind land use. So those are like pieces, not a full chapter yet.
Online, does anybody want transportation, road networking, bike and pedestrian, or transit?
I'll go for transportation.
Okay.
All right, Tom.
And
Transportation.
Way to step up.
Yeah, I would like that too. Thanks.
I've been run over on my bicycle, maybe.
if anybody changes their mind, let me know. And then the last one is the growth and land use chapter. And I understand if lots of people or everyone wants to look at this one early. So I see John Ruggles. And I'm gonna go around this way so I remember what direction I'm going. Rick, Al wants in on that. Who else wants to be an early reviewer? Okay. Dirk. Michelle. Diane. And Tina. Anyone online? Christy?
Yeah, I would take a look at that one too. This is Andrea.
Andrea? Did I miss anybody who wants to be an early reviewer on that? Okay.
It's just, at some point, like, when we get this with the calendar, we'll have who the early volunteers are.
Yeah.
Because some of these, I think,
Yeah.
I've really done that so much times, I'm just gonna see.
Do you
I might
do you
want
want to go back and take your name off of anything? If you feel you've over volunteered, which is an impulse I understand on a very personal level. We can go back and remove your name off it. So if I send this out with them and you go, actually, I'm gonna skip blah, 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 that's just fine too. Or if you weren't comfortable like diving in right away and saying, I'm ready to be a reviewer on that, and you want a little more time, go ahead. And we can add you after. We'll do like a version of this, you know, just trying to get an initial sense of it. So then I think the other question is, looking through this list.
Sorry, Susie, just put her hand.
Oh, sorry. What was that?
Did you do May 7th? I missed that.
No, May 7th isn't going to have early reviewers because you're gonna be reviewing pieces and not a full chapter. We'll have that discussion here. So some of those pieces that are, so you're kind of building the land use chapter all along the way. There'll be pieces and parts of it, and we'll check in on it multiple times. It's just too important and too integrated a chapter to do a ton of those early reviews, if that makes sense. And you might have to scale some things back for affordability and housing, or move some things forward for how the energy discussion goes. So we'll try and keep in touch about the pieces of it. And the parking lot might be full of growth and land use stuff by the time we're midway through, which would be just fine. So should we talk about boards and commissions? Right. So given this initial discussion, are there topics for which you would like me to solicit additional reviewers from any of the boards and commissions that are listed? And I will put, I have some slides we can reference to. These are all the county boards and commissions. There's many fewer of them. And then there's a whole lot of city boards and commissions. So these are your phone a friend options. If you were who wants to be a millionaire.
Sarah, I just would like to mention that some of the county commissions, and I'm not familiar with the city, are probably not really relevant to this process. So just looking at that list, probably too. Yeah.
I want to hear
eliminate
from
a
the
few, so don't
self-insurance
get
trust
daunted
fund
by the
board.
list. Sorry.
I don't even know if there's people on the trust fund board. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I've never talked to them. But this is the kind of, that's the kind of piece of it that would just be worthwhile. Oh, there's Michelle back. Yeah, like in the Industrial Development Authority, I don't really know that they do a lot, but they might exist.
This is people that we want to come into the meetings to speak about that specific part of the.
No, this is commissions and boards that you would like me to go request 2 additional reviewers from. So like, you don't have to for any of them, but if you said, I'd really like to have 2 people from the Open Space Commission be reviewing the open space chapter.
I was just gonna say that, housing commission. You can't have one with the housing or the Flagstaff Housing Authority.
Mountain Morning. Yeah, so, how would you like to gather this?
Information, yeah, it's gonna be a little tough because there are so many of these. We kind of need both up, don't we? We need the boards and commissions up and the schedule. So that's
Yeah.
not possible. We need more screens.
I need more screens. There's 3 computers in the room. I still don't have them. I know. I'll do my best to like cross-reference them, but we could either work through it by the schedule maybe. And if you can try, if you've got access on your device to the 1-pager, and if not, these are my notes, but I can hand around the one.
And I've got it up.
I mean, to your point about there's a lot of commissions on there that do
more
stuff that we are not at all interested in. So maybe it's better if people just suggest for specific sections, right? Those sections we just talked about. with the numbers, open space, recreation, water resources, energy. If people suggest a commission or board that they think should get the opportunity to review that, like we just heard, the open space and Parks and Rec should get to see the open space and Parks and Rec section.
They should, yeah, really what we're asking is they should provide some early reviewers.
Yeah.
Right, right. It seems like some are just natural matches to the chapters. They're actually the same name.
Water.
Yeah, so water, transportation,
Open space.
open space.
I trust you.
Yeah,
Sustainability.
yeah.
You don't know this stuff.
I would like to have the Sustainability Commission involved in everything. But, you know, if you can think of more specific chapters, that's fine, or sections. But definitely the Sustainability Commission needs to be involved in somehow.
So
In some.
can I get some clarification? What is it that you're gonna go in front of these guys and say, look, the regional plan group is studying this particular topic on this particular day. Is there anything you want us to know? Or is it gonna be that general, or do you need questions from us? Water resources, I think is hugely important in terms of having a water commission here or someone from it. But they're doing a rate study right now. Those rates will impact everybody. It doesn't necessarily impact the regional plan, except for the access to water and Red Cap Ranch, for example, those kinds of things. So, I mean, what is it that you're looking for from them for us?
Let me reframe the ask here. So what I'm asking is, for which topics and which commission should I contact on by email and say the regional plan committee would like to request 2 people from your commission to be early reviewers of the following chapters of the regional plan. And then I would explain that commitment to them. And I think Julie said earlier, and I wrote this down, that we should be specific and selective in that request, because they are not, even Sustainability Commission, which touches a lot of things, sustainability is heavily represented here.
But you're giving them a document to review. That's what this is about.
Yes, and they would provide comments at the same time as staff and the extended committee members who signed up to review more.
So could I give an example?
Sure.
So if I would ask for like the Indigenous Commission to either look at, and you can decide, a future land use map draft or growth and land use chapter, would that be something would that make sense?
Yeah, if that's.
That
what
would be a
you
good
want.
example.
Yeah, that would be an example. You'd say, I think that, and you might think like, me and Melissa can, you know, as Paul said, we can offer like, well, if you're gonna ask Indigenous Commission for the city, we would also ask IPAC, which is the county's version of that group. Or we might bring them together and have them provide one for each or something like that. We can do some of the cleaning up like that.
Well, then that was legitimate. I would like them to look at land use, either the initial land use framework or the growth and land use, whatever you think would tie appropriately to the commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's a good way to make a proposal of that sort. I don't know,
Yeah, does anyone else have any proposals, just like the one that Anthony just made?
Without looking at a lot more information on how you
Yep.
without the draft.
You know, I'll repeat again, you know the city government much better than any of us do. So I do trust you, you know, that you're not gonna overburden one commission or leave one. So. I'll leave it.
Sorry, Michelle.
Yeah, so Transportation Commission has these 2 advisory committees.
Mhm.
And so when I say transportation for the transportation section, I think those committees should also be included
okay.
to review those sections. So sectional review.
But I'm somewhat hearing from Paul that perhaps we'd like to see a recommendation from you as to which sections go to which commissions. And then we can either comment on it or up or download it.
Yeah.
Does
We
that
can
sound?
do that.
Yeah.
I
Is that
can
a,
compare that with
it's like a
Melissa
reasonable
for the next
compromise?
meeting.
That's great.
But if you have other thoughts or feedback, let us, yeah.
So, I would send, cost of development, initial land use framework and development guidelines to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And it goes without saying, but Transportation Commission to the Transportation.
And you now have 10 people in the chat. Is it changing?
Oh, those are just, people adding things like Tom had to log off, and so he logged off. And
Oh,
I stamped it, unfortunately. I have the chat open.
Oh, you're seeing it all?
Mine is 0.
Okay.
Somebody's been adding, so don't worry about it.
That's what.
And I will definitely invite David and Anthony to join the chat and the Zoom, even when they're in the room, to help me monitor the chat. I'd be sure.
I do want to ask for the housing. I said, I probably need to see the draft, but really like to see its growth projection going into the next till 2045.
Yeah, the growth projection we've used for scenario planning includes both the Office of Environmental, or I'm sorry, the Office of Economic Opportunities, state projection for Flagstaff, and the increase in housing production recommended by the affordable housing, the 10-year housing plan for Flagstaff. So when we generated like units to put into scenario planning, we assumed we would add the units above just what the growth rate would require in order to try and achieve affordability based on our initial findings. And that actually is a number that when we looked at how Econa did their affordable housing work, it actually matched really well. So we have 2 studies that confirm that's the projection we need for affordability. So that's already been, and I can go over those numbers with anybody if they are more interested in understanding them, but we had to make that call way back last summer when we started drawing scenarios, or we wouldn't have been able to offer, good outcomes.
That comes back around to the cost of development at the end of the day as well.
Can you give me a hint as to what development guidelines and community character is again?
That's not a chapter, it's a piece of the growth and land use chapter. We do right now have a separate community character chapter in the regional plan. And what I will say is it is very confusing because it is not well integrated with the growth and land use chapter, as if community character and growth and land use can be like separated this way.
Right.
That is not how it has worked in practice. And so it has a lot of great concepts in them, some of which don't have any information on how to implement them, and they just sound like really good ideas. So I have some criticism of our current community character chapter, and it's one of the sources of a lot of conflicting policies with the growth and land use chapter. So that's probably something you've seen in a lot of zoning cases. People trot out the community character goals and policies because they're not well integrated with growth and land use. So one of our recommendations is not to have a separate community character chapter, but to treat it as part of growth and land use, and that our future character is dependent on how we do growth and land use and what the design of it looks like.
Okay, if it was a separate chapter, I was going to suggest beautification and public art, but since it's a conjoined chapter, I don't think that that's relevant anymore. Thank you.
Do you think beautification and public art would want to look at the community use chapter?
I just don't know. It seems better when it was. I really don't know. I would have to ask the committee what they would think. I can't think right now.
Well, if we get to the May 7th meeting, I mean, we will definitely accept feedback. Like that's our initial idea, is that they were too disconnected in this version. But if when we get to May 7th, the committee says, actually, we still need a separate chapter, we just need to do a better job of making sure they don't conflict. That's an approach we can take too. That's just kind of how, I know we haven't gotten into the initial document structure, but it's very flexible. It's, as long as we're checking all the boxes in the state statute, we organize it sort of in a lot of different ways, and different cities have done it in a lot of different ways.
I'll try to remember that, but if you could asterisk it or just highlight
Yeah.
that for, yeah, it's something, community characters is something that comes up in my circles a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll highlight that as an item to make sure we're flagging along the way.
Thank you.
No problem. Sorry, I'm making a note here. Okay. Just so you know, Ally just was able to join us and she's kind of coming in late in the conversation.
Hi, Ali.
Welcome.
And with that, Ali, I think we're actually we're ready to adjourn.
Okay, well.
I thought I was good.
I think we should tell her that David Hayward is gonna be our committee chair and Anthony Garcia will be the vice chair.
Awesome. Well, I guess that's, I got some information, so.
Right, just so you know who's in charge from here on out.
Okay, awesome.
We're in the middle of kind of discussing the boards and commissions list and talking about how staff is gonna come back with a proposal on boards and commissions and how they can be involved in which one should be involved in rough draft reviews of different chapters. And then the committee can decide how selective to be about that decision. And, you know, I think my initial recommendation was we do keep it pretty selective. We try not to make everything be reviewed by every committee, but I can make a list that crosswalks it all pretty well. And then we can say, yeah, but we've got enough people in this committee who are ready to talk to natural resources and the environment. And like, that's an area we're pretty heavy on. Maybe we don't need to also get committee reviewers from that subject matter. So those are the kinds of things I think we should weigh because we're sharing a burden, but we want to be doing it selectively. And they can say, no, we're not interested if they want to, so.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you will have people where you don't get anyone who volunteers. Or they volunteer and then they don't really give you very much in the way of comments, so.
Like me.
Having been on a board, just kidding.
As Anthony and David remember, they just find out to review everything. So that's a good discussion for me. I think, do you have anything else on the agenda?
No, I think that was your final action item.
Can I do a quick announcement then?
Were announcements, were those, they're not on the agenda, so. Yeah, you can do in the next.
On the next agenda, just put 2 from items.
Yeah, I need to put a little two from at the end. We're refining the process as we go, okay? So, yeah, this is like a plane we're building as we're flying it, right? So.
Not good.
that's very involved here. Melissa and I are out in the community working on scenario choosing, open houses and ambassador outreach. We could really use some help from the committee members in spreading the word about the online open house and directing people to it. Right now we have 229 people in the first 3 weeks who took the ranking survey and finished everything in that 5-step online open house. My hope is that we can have 800 to 1,000 people fill it out by January 19th. And that is directly input that you will have available to you on January 30th to look at. So it really is to your benefit also as a committee to get a lot of people that you know to participate in that process. We have 18 community ambassadors, and I also have 2 local sub-consultants who can facilitate discussions if you want us to do something in person. Renee Redday from Building Community and Isle from ETD are both available, and they have hours available for me to put them in front of the community in different places. But also the ambassadors are setting stuff up to happen throughout this period until January 19th. So help us get into the community. help us connect. We really need a lot of outreach for that to happen. And so I think we've gotten the first easy 200 people. They've already done it. The next 600 people get harder and harder and harder to persuade and reach if you know anything about marketing and outreach. And so your help is really incumbent on us if you want to have robust information to look at on January 30th. So be our hype people and help us get this information into the community. That's my sort of announcement slash.
Sarah?
Yes.
Hi, it's Christy. Do you have an infographic or some language you could share with us that we could circulate?
Yes, we have a flyer and we have some other materials, and there's going to be social media coming out through the city and county Facebook and Instagram pages. And we can make sure that's getting shared out with all of you.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Lily?
Are there any guidelines or rules that we should follow besides copying and pasting the graphics from the plan page for the meetings? I'm conducting 3 meetings and I want to put flyers up in the places where they're going to be. And so should I just copy and paste the graphics from the website, or what? Can I just say, come here to this meeting on this day?
Yeah, I think we are not tightly controlling how people advertise their own small group gatherings. We're glad to help. Kyle from ETD and Joe, who's my temp for associate planner, are happy to help create graphics if what you want is like, hey, could you help me make a flyer for something I want to get the word out for? But if you're more comfortable doing it yourself, yeah.
No, I'm calling Kyle.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Or you could use a flyer that's already been used.
Yeah, don't you have one that's like a 1-page already?
It does.
And,
yeah.
So I want to add that. I want to add the meetings that I'm doing, because I've already heard from several people that they do not want to do it online. They want the interaction and discussion. And the example I used was when I changed my mind after Diane spoke last time about something. Because of that interaction, I looked at it from a different point of view. And so several people have voiced that they would prefer that opportunity. And so I was just, for people that don't want to do it online, I just want to put a flyer up that doesn't have the online information.
Yeah, and if you want to do something that is, even if you didn't come to the ambassador training and you want to do something that's much more analog than the online open house, the ambassadors and Kyle and Renee and my staff are all trained, and we do have a paper version that you have to kind of score like a middle school math test, but it is a way to do it on paper and in person for audiences that makes sense for. And so it can definitely be pulled together that way too. So yeah, we made both of those available, but we realized it's the holiday. So I sort of, with the online open house, I called it the pajama version. Like if you really want to be by your toasty fire with like a blanket and your pajamas and a tea, that's the one for you. And if you really want to like be at a holiday gathering and talking to your neighbors and like, reflecting on life and the mysteries of the universe, then like there's a way to do that too. And we'll make sure that both are available.
I'll throw out there that that's why all my meetings are in January, because I couldn't get participation to the level I thought it would be, was needed through December. So I just, the first 2 weeks of January, I'm not sure I'm gonna know my name, but I don't care.
Michelle, were you raising your hand or stretching? Okay.
Yeah, I was raising my hand, but when you're done.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I had a question about how we're going to handle public comment.
Mhm.
I know that we have a link now on the top of the agenda, right? Where people can submit public comment. So how do we hear that public comment or read it? Or are we gonna talk about it in here? Or are we gonna,
There's some in here.
is there some?
Yeah, there's some language in the guidelines. Go back to it.
Thank you.
I will read it off, so we're all on the same page about it. That we accept written public comments at a dedicated email which I have access to called regional plan committee at flagstaffaz.gov. Or people can mail them to me if they love to write me a letter. Somebody once sent me a poem about how lame public engagement is, and I've kept it all these years. So if you want to send me a poem as a comment, I prefer those with like a stamp and handwritten. They're just more artistic that way. That we basically wouldn't accept public comment in the chat because that's really distracting and hard for me to manage in a meeting. And that we would distribute the committee members all of the comment received the day before the meeting, and that we would forward them as time allows the day of the meeting. Some people like to write a written comment at 6:02 p.m. after the meeting has started. And I just can't ever guarantee that those get into your hands at the same time. So we're going to encourage people to get them in advance the day before. Then also you had decided that you would have some spoken comments during the meeting for a 20-minute time period after staff presentation. And that you would typically allow 2.5 minutes per speaker on a first come first served basis. And that you could suspend those rules and allow 3 minutes of spoken comment per individual for an unlimited amount of time at the discretion of the chair or by a vote of the committee to suspend those rules. And then I also put in here spoken comments should be limited to the topics on the agenda, and then staff presentation comments on other topics can be provided at any time in writing. And that the first come first serve part would be we put, and this would be starting at the next meeting, we put something in the room that people could put their name down on. And that also, as people were signing up and getting on in the chat and saying, I'd like to speak, I'd try and add them as quickly as possible as people are signing on. That might get overwhelming if we had a big turnout for one of the meetings. But I don't know. We've had 3 or 4 people at the most so far. And if 100 people showed up, I'd be really shocked, especially if we offer a really robust written comment opportunity.
Once you get to the topics though, you might start to attract folks. I mean, who's gonna come from the public to help decide who the chair of this thing is?
Yeah, nobody. It's not showed up. So yeah, I mean, that's right. There could be big turnouts. I guess if there's a big turnout and lots of people want to do spoken comments, you guys can decide, but you do only have a 2-hour meeting most of the time. So it's, if you want to stay till 10 o'clock, we can, but you can also offer alternatives, and the chair and vice chair. Maybe we should think about that a little bit. And if you've got suggestions by email you want to make on other ways, we can manage that.
I mean, I like the way that we had it laid out. I think it's
good.
It allows people to comment while, without robbing us of the time we need to do our job.
Plus, we had a couple of discussion around that topic already.
Good, thank you for clarifying. Probably talked about it last week, but I was online and I must have missed something.
Yeah. Absolutely. So with that cover stuff, that's all my announcements. Anything else?
I just want to ask if everyone will just remain in the exact position that we are. Don't start your conversations or anything once the meeting's adjourned. And because I want to have like a group participation thing that'll just take a second. I just came up with it in my head.
Okay.
What?
We're adjourning early.
Yeah. We're adjourned.
We'll adjourn.
All right. So the thought is coming into my head about the song, but I didn't bring my guitar. So all we have is our hands. So if we could all clap together. I'm thinking about this tempo.
All right.
So let's go straight to the chorus. Regional plans don't write themselves. Regional plans don't write themselves. Regional plans. Regional plans. Regional plans. 33% plus 1 equals a quorum.
Wow. Hey, Sarah,
Flag committee.
this swag
She's recording.
Oh, yeah.
that we got here,
Yeah, I don't think people online.
are they instrumental?
Oh, yeah. So I handed out, for those online, you'll get one of these. Actually, sorry if I'm blurring, trying to figure out how to not make it blur. This is, yeah, some swag as a thank you for participating. It is a notebook that's actually made of whiteboards. And so if you are a user of some kind of electronic note-taking app on your phone, you can write your notes from the meeting and take a photo and upload it. And then erase it. And then you have a nice thin notebook you can take anywhere with you and use in the meetings. And it's a very sustainable, low carbon footprint. And if you're online, I'll give it to you next time.
Hey, Sarah, are you keeping these or are we keeping?
Oh, yeah. Just stay right on the table, we'll pick them up and bring them to every meeting.
These?
Yeah, those. Leave those and I'll bring them around. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
I think you already printed that stuff out. I only have